A maintenance crew found the tunnel by accident sealed behind a rusted boiler. Spray-painted "Do Not Enter" in frantic red strokes. Inside the dorm above, every bed was neatly made. Diaries left open mid-sentence. Teacups still steaming 48 girls, never seen again. No signs of struggle. Not even footprints. 40-7 years later, hikers hear singing beneath the old foundations. When they pry open the hatch, they find a staircase descending into black-hand fresh handprints smeared along the walls. One is still wet. Would you follow the voices down, or pray they're already coming up? When the lights flicker, close your eyes first. Sometimes the dark is more honest. Rain tapped the corrugated roof in uneven pulses, like someone knocking with the wrong memory of rhythm. Dr. Elsie Harrow stood ankle-deep in runoff water that hadn't drained right since they cracked open the sub-basement hatch. The team had found it behind a boiler no one recalled installing. It was sealed with 4 locks, all cut with different hands. The hinges hadn't rusted, they'd scorched, blackened at the edges like a mouth silenced. Mid-scream. The hatch had breathed when it opened. Not with air, not exactly. With pressure. With something beneath that had waited too long to be beneath. Elsie's recorder clicked on in her pocket without her touching it. June 14th. Site 9D recovery, initial descent, she whispered, though no one had asked her to document aloud. Old habits, bad ones. The kind the Institute had trained into her after the '03 purge. She stepped down first. The tunnel walls were bone-white but uneven, textured with ancient pipe scarring. Paint blistered in perfect lines where old lines of shelving must have been stripped long ago. It smelled too warm, like flesh pressed too close in a crawlspace. 3 interns followed. Lynn, Halder, and Marta. Marta was the youngest, still wore her ID clipped to her coat like it meant protection. She kept wiping her hands on her thighs, not because they were dirty, but because she couldn't feel them anymore. The first room had no number, just a door, warped and bowed at the middle, light leaking around it like it was holding something back. Halder reached for the knob. It turned to easily, a click, then a soft descending sigh, as if the room itself deflated. They stepped in. It wasn't empty. A mirror stood facing them, tall and cracked vertically like a spine under pressure. The reflection showed them slightly wrong hair parted differently, buttons misaligned. Marta's ID badge dated 2027. That's not, Marta began. But Lynn shushed her. The mirror breathed frost across its bottom edge. Fog bloomed where no one had exhaled. On the far wall, a drawer had opened itself. Inside, a child's shoe, left-footed, canvas rotted along the sole. The heel had been marked in ink, Room 1 for B. The font matched the intake forms used in the Eastern Orphan Ledger. Archived, then redacted after the 1985 audits. Elsie stepped closer, hand trembling as she reached for it. The laces were tied in a double knot. Someone had loved this child, or tried. Scan it, she said. Lynn didn't move. I don't think we're supposed to. None of this was supposed to survive. Elsie whispered, the lights above them, dimmed in a slow, deliberate pulse. Not flickering, breathing. They moved deeper, the hallway past the mirror. Room narrowed until it pressed the team into single file. The walls had names written faintly beneath peeling paint. You could only see them if the light hit from below. Names like Alma, Joseph, and Lacey. Some were scratched out, but not well. They came to a second hatch, this one metal, darker, thick, with grease at the seams. There was no handle. Halder touched the door. It clicked open. They didn't open it. It opened them. Inside was a soundproofed room, walls padded with institutional grey. No furniture, no window, just a hymn, faint, playing from nowhere. A child's voice, off-key. O Lamb of God, who takes away. Elsie stepped in. The moment her foot crossed the threshold, her ears popped, like landing hard on descent. Lynn followed. Marta didn't. She backed against the hall, eyes wide, mouthing no before her voice returned. I saw this place, she whispered. Where? My dreams. My grandma said not to follow the song. In the center of the padded room was a burnt photo, propped gently against the wall like someone had tried to save it from fire and failed. The image, 5 children sitting on a bench, one missing a face, one wearing the left-footed shoe. The back of the photo was signed still. Waiting, room 1 for B. Elsie's breath caught. The girl without the face had the same dress as her sister who'd vanished in '92, but her sister was never registered here. This place didn't exist, except her scar had a tiamesta. Halder walked to the far wall, ran, his hand down it, stopped. There's a seam here, he said. He pressed. The padding gave way, revealing another door, smaller, a drawer, chest height. It slid open like it had waited decades for this moment. Inside, a torn page from a hymn. The same verse, scribbled over in red, stop singing. They listened through the songs. And beneath it, in childlike script, tell Elsie she left me here. Halder turned. What did you say? Elsie's mouth was open, but she hadn't spoken. I didn't know, you said something. I heard, then silence, thick, thick, pressurized, like the air before something awful moves. The mirror flickered back on in the hallway behind them, now showing 5 figures. But they were 4. Elsie stepped back into the hall, turning. The mirror showed her own face. Then her younger one. Then none. Marta was crying softly now, holding her ID. The date had changed again. Why does it say, visitor now? She asked. No one answered. Behind them, a hairline crack formed in the padded room's wall. It crawled upward slowly. A long, deliberate breath of damage. Something's in the walls, Halder said. No, Elsie whispered. It's in the gaps. They turned back toward the tunnel, but the path wasn't the same. The boiler room was gone. In its place, a corridor lined with filing cabinets. Drawers hung open. Files inside were soaked, redacted, some still dripped. One bore Elsie's name, but the photo wasn't her, a girl, 10 years old. Burn scar across her collarbone. Below, typed in faded ink, recovered. 1983. Released 1992. Subject believes herself to be staff. Halder looked at her. Elsie. She backed away, shaking her head. I was never you, left me here. It wasn't Halder. It wasn't any of them. It was the mirror. It had spoken. Lynn screamed. Marta dropped to her knees, clutching the hymn page. The sound in the tunnel looped now. O Lamb of God. O Lamb of God. O Lamb of the light snapped off, then flicked back on. The mirror now reflected only the padded room, empty except for one thing. A wet, child-sized handprint pressed against the inside of the lens. Still dripping, they're still waiting. Some names were never meant to be remembered out loud, only recounted like guilt in whispers. It took Elise longer than it should have to realize the tea was still warm. That was the first wrong thing. Not the peeling wallpaper, not the bedspreads tucked too tightly to have been touched that day. Not even the diary pages mid-sentence, ink still glossy. It was the heat trapped, waiting like the girls had only just stepped outside, or hadn't left at all. She stood in the dormitory hallway with her hands folded behind her back, as if still staff, still official. That reflex was dangerous here. She had worked long enough in places like this to know that some walls only let you leave if you stop believing you were ever a part of them. Room A6. The brass plate was polished. None of the others were. Inside, 6 identical cots, all made, all labeled, ivory tags stitched into the foot of each mattress. Geneva, Ruth, Eliza, Dot, Marnie, Lillian, neat cursive. Embroidery, thread too careful to be official. Not catalogued. Not clinical, intimate. The mirror above the sink didn't show her. It showed the room last winter, or perhaps next year. Snow ghosted the window corners. One bed had been slept in. Geneva's Elise blinked. The image held for a moment too long, then vanished. A whisper pressed through the radiator behind her. Words bled into each other. Don't go to chapel, don't they think we're singing, but it's a count, don't. The radiator hissed. Fell quiet. On the far cot, Dot's diary lay open. Elise didn't want to read it. She did anyway. December 3rd. Marnie still missing. They said she was released. That's what they call it now. But Geneva said she saw her reflection walk into the hallway mirror and not come back out. There were no more entries. In her pocket, Elise still carried the page from the intake ledger she'd stolen from records, the one stamped archive expunged with the brittle glue of a removed photo still clinging to it. 48 entries. No surnames, no forward. Transfers, just a single scrawled note. Yearbook destroyed per Section 7B protocol. She stepped back into the hallway. The wallpaper bloomed with pale mildew in the shape of wingsfant, symmetrical. No breeze, no reason. Her voice recorder clicked on again, by itself. Dormitory floor 2, occupied but unscheduled. 48 beds, each labeled. Diary dates. End December 3rd. All rooms present, except one. Room B1 wasn't on the blueprint. The hallway shouldn't have extended that far, but it did. Just barely, narrower, painted over in uneven grey. Like a cover-up of something once burned. A door waited at the end. UNNUMBERED .NKNOBBED .breathing .with air. With cold, she pushed gently. The door opened onto itself. Inside, the room widened into a makeshift gallery. 48 framed photographs for rows of 12 lined the walls. The faces were blurred, intentionally, surgically. The eyes had been scratched out with a pin, so delicately it hurt to look. Beneath each, a nameplate. All single names. Geneva, Ruth, Marnie. And in the corner, a burnt photo hung alone. Not in a frame pinned with a rusted tack. It showed the entire dormitory, taken from above. The girls sat on their beds, knees together, hands folded. All smiled, but their shadows were gone. Elise stepped closer. The girls had no shadows. The hymn began faintly. Again, as if behind the wall, she turned. A drawer sat embedded in the wall. Not built in, embedded. Part of the structure, but never meant to be opened. It had no handle, only the outline. Still, it slid open with a soft, rotten sigh. Inside, a roll of undeveloped film, charred at the edges, labeled in red ink, "Do not process," and something else beneath it. A hymn page, torn diagonally, edges stained. Room 3 must not sing. Room 3 remembers too much. She backed away. Her heel tapped something soft. A child's shoe, left-footed, caked in soot. It hadn't been there before. Elise looked up. The mirror across the room reflected the hallway, but it was no longer empty. A line of girls waited there, pale, still, each wearing a version of the same dress, each with the same badge pinned over their heart. Visitor Geneva stood at the front. She opened her mouth, but no sound came. Elise turned to run. The hallway had shortened behind her. Only 3 doors now. A 1, a 2, and a 6. But a 6 had no nameplate. Any more, no beds. Just the sound of tea cooling on a desk. A breath fogged the glass beside her. She froze. No one had exhaled. She turned. The window had a single handprint on it. Child-sized, wet dot. The hymn stuttered behind her. Lamb of God, Lamb of Lamb, of a low voice. Adult, authoritative, spoken directly behind her ear. You were supposed to take roll. She spun. No one. Just the diary. Open again. New ink. Elise came late. Elise forgot Marnie. Elise forgot all of us. No pen in sight. Just heat gathering in the pages like breath trapped too long. She stepped back into the photo room. The roll of film was gone. In its place, an envelope. She picked it up. Her name was written on the front, not in ink, in stitching, that same embroidery thread. Inside a photo, she was 12, wearing the dorm uniform, smiling, captioned, Elise, 1975, third from left. The class photo, the one she had burned herself, the one she had never posed for. The mirror behind her now showed the dormitory as it had been. All beds occupied, all girls staring forward. One by one, they began to turn their heads. Toward her, Elise dropped the photo. It didn't land. It vanished. Behind her, the drawer clicked closed. The lights dimmed. The girls in the mirror reached forward. Elise ran down the hall, through the narrowing passage, past names that scratched themselves off as she passed Dot. At the exit stairwell, she stopped. Something shimmered across the steps. A repeating loop of projector film. Burnt frames, each. One a girl, each one smiling, no eyes. She climbed over them. The top floor had changed. All windows were bricked. No staff lounge, no voices, just the chapel door, still ajar inside. Only ash, and one name carved freshly into the pew. Marnie. She turned across the hall. A light blinked on behind a cracked door. Room 3, she walked to it, pushed it open. No beds, just film. Dozens of rolls. Scorched, unspooled, labeled in the same red. Do not process. She picked one up, underneath. A line of writing etched into the floor. The ones you forget remember longest. A sound behind the wall, like a child knocking Dot, like a hymn backwards, like roll call. She turned toward the mirror. It showed her again, not adult, not staff, 12, third from the left, smiling Dot, smiling Dodge, found a burned roll of film, labeled Do Not Process. It's not the scream you hear. It's the one they stitched into your skin. The tapes arrived without sender, packed into a cardboard box lined with hymn pages soaked in vinegar. Elise hadn't requested them. She hadn't told anyone. She remembered the song. There were 11 cassettes, unlabeled except for a number and the word chapel. Side B of each was blank, except one. She loaded tape 7 into the old tutorial. They'd recovered from storage F. The recorder clicked alive, like it had just woken from a long, drugged sleep. For the first 6 minutes, silence. Then a laugh, childlike, sudden, sharp. A second voice joined. Then a third. Laughter, laughter, and then a scream. Not loud, close. Elise didn't flinch. She recognized it. The hymn started low, behind it. Not sung, recited. Backwards, not reversed by tape. It was spoken that way, as if learned in reverse. From the beginning, she shut it off. She was alone in the Institute's listening room. Deep below the archives, where blueprints claimed nothing existed. The overhead bulb flickered behind a cracked glass cover. Light stretched across the floor, then disappeared. Then stretched again. Her reflection in the small mirror above the real player moved half a second behind her. The drawers beside the player weren't catalogued in any inventory. She opened the first. Inside, a burnt photo. It showed the chapel, pews filled. Children in uniform, smiling. A girl near the back turned slightly mouth open mid-song. The edges of the photo had blistered, melted into her outline. On the back, in pencil, side B, do not listen with skin exposed. The second drawer shouldn't have existed. It had no seam, but it slid open. Inside, a child's shoe, left-footed, stuffed with cotton. The fabric inside was stained, rust. A folded slip of paper was pressed into the toe dot. Elise unfolded it with gloved hands. And a hymn fragment, not torn, sliced. And the lambs shall kneel where names are gone. And where the silence like a skin, she placed the shoe back, slowly, in the corridor outside. The soundproofed walls were bleeding sound. Low vibrations pulsed from the tape room's west corner. The blueprints said it was structural support. Elise's palms said otherwise. She opened the door into the next chamber. No lights, just a cracked door across the room, faint illumination. Crawling underneath it like something too thin to stand. She moved forward. The air here was heavier, not with dust, with something else. Like the room had been listening for so long it had gone deaf from memory. A wall-length map was pinned to one side. A hand-drawn floor plan. The building, but wrong. Corridors extended into the blank margins. Labels in a child's scrawl. Mirror. Hall. Skin chapel. Her room. One space was circled over and over until the paper tore. Listening closet. No such place existed, but Elise had seen it. In the dream they told her was just anesthesia, the same one where she woke up with a line of stitches behind her left ear and no one filed a report. Behind her, something clicked. Tape 7 had begun playing again. She had not pressed it. Voices, girls, murmuring, then silence. Then a whisper layered so faint it bled into the static. She's still down there. Don't say her name. She paused the tape. Beneath the audio cabinet, a hairline crack ran from the corner of the baseboard up to the vent. As she watched, it moved. Not shifted, breathed, opened 0.5 millimeter. A draft kissed her ankle. She kneeled, there. Tucked into the vent, a ledger. Old cloth-bound, no title. Inside, 54 names, 40-8, crossed out. 6. Smudged. 1 underlined twice. Elise. She snapped the book shut. The lights buzzed. Above the exit door, breath fogged the window. A handprint appeared. Then a second, smaller. No footsteps, no sound. She moved back into the corridor. The air changed. Sound travelled wrong here. Too fast, to the left. A soundproof door ajar. It hadn't been open before she entered. The room was lined with carpet, padded walls, no furniture, just a real projector mounted to the ceiling, dripping something dark from its casing. It clicked on, footage began. Black and white dot children in chapel again, smiling, singing, then the same girls, same pews, same camera. Angle, no mouths, tape, hiss. Then Elise, younger, third pew, looking directly into the lens, a name whispered, her name. But from outside the speaker, she turned, behind the padded wall. Something thudded once. Then again she approached. The wallpaper there peeled slightly. She pulled a hidden drawer. Child-height, inside, a folded chapel robe, burned at the collar, a mirror fragment sewn into the fabric. It didn't reflect the room. It reflected a year that hadn't happened. She saw her cell folder, scarred, alone, pulling another girl from beneath the floorboards, tapes scattered, a voice repeating. She's still down there. The drawer slammed shut by itself. Elise backed away. Her palms itched. The stitching behind her left ear throbbed for the first time in 17 years. She whispered, I didn't forget her. The mirror disagreed. It showed her walking away, not looking back. The room began to pulse with sound now. Looped, echoed, laughter, scream, hymn. Laughter, scream, hymn, and underneath it, the low, surgical hum of a real recorder left running. Too long she stumbled into the corridor, down a hall that hadn't existed. Before children's drawings lined the walls. None smiled. One was titled, Sound You Can't Scrub. Another, Rooms That Don't Get Daylight. At the end, a door, thin wooden, carved with dozens of initials. She placed her palm against it. It opened. No room. Just stairs down. She took them. 12 steps. Then 20. Then 32. Then the last one disappeared beneath her foot. She fell forward, only a moment, then landed in silence. Pitch dark. A red light blinked on audio surveillance. A recorder already running. She looked up. The walls were covered in old cassette tape, strung like veins, taut, humming, and in the center, a mirror, tall, full-length, tilted forward, as if trying to listen. Her reflection stared back and smiled, only it didn't stop smiling, even as she wept, even as she turned away, even as her hand rose, not by will, but by memory. She pressed it to the glass. From the other side, a second hand met hers, smaller, burnt, and a whisper layered under skin, barely caught on the tape. She's still down there. Don't say her name. Some rooms are drawn before they're built, and some doors are older than the building. The blueprint was folded 6 times, unevenly, as if hands had done it quickly, but not recently. It smelled of mildew, ink, and something darker beneath the paper grain. Elise spread it open on the desk with the caution one uses to unbandage an old wound. This version of the Institute's layout had no date, no signature, only the words internal use, archival. Wing B stamped faintly in the upper corner, then crossed out with red wax. The X at the bottom was the only mark not smudge drawn in pencil, circled twice, then once more in a jagged ring that dug through the layers. The room it marked had no name, no measurements, just a stairwell that led nowhere. According to every official floor plan, that stairwell had never existed. She turned the blueprint over. On the reverse, in faint graphite, someone had traced the outlines of the Institute's foundation, but the lines warped. The perimeter bent subtly outward around. The lower level, not wider in construction, wider in memory. Elise looked again. This version of the building was breathing. A drawer in the desk one that hadn't been there before had slid slightly open. She froze. The air shifted. Not cold, not warm. Mold-sweet inside the drawer. A child's hymn book, water-damaged. Open to a torn page. And he shall build his room in thine bones, and thy silence shall be a prayer. Beneath it, a photo, slightly burnt along the edge. 6 children standing before a stone archway that didn't appear in any archive. Each wore the same stitched robe, each with their eyes shut, as if mid-prayer, but one child, a girl, near the left, faced the wrong way, toward the wall. Away from the camera. She was barefoot, and one of her shoes, Elise realized, sat beneath the desk, dusted, left-footed, embroidered. Initials just barely legible in the lining. LJ. Elise didn't remember taking it with her, but she knew she must have. She always left with something. A line of breath fogged the window above the desk, but she had not exhaled. She rose, blueprint in hand, and followed the path. Down 2 flights, past the sealed boiler access, past the bricked-up chapel corridor, until she reached the corridor listed only on the back of the drawing. Subratory passage, unverified. A metal door stood crooked on rusted hinges. Light spilled through a cracked panel pale blue, as if filtered through decades of water and apology. Beyond it, stairs descended where no stairs should have been. The first 3 creaked. The rest swallowed sound entirely. Halfway down, Elise paused. A mirror hung nailed to the stone. Not level, not clean. Its surface shimmered faintly, not with reflection, but memory in the glass. Her outline, younger, paler, holding the blueprint, same as now, but the walls behind her were closer, and in her arms, not paper, but a child, mouth stitched shut. She turned from the mirror before it could become truer than the present. The staircase ended at a corridor not made of stone, but of old, soundproof padding stitched into place, the kind used in isolation rooms. Only this one extended far beyond any holding area. The walls breathed faintly. To her left, a locked gate to her right, a single bell suspended from the ceiling, tarnished bronze. Beneath it, the words etched into the arch. 3rd bell, oratory access. She opened the blueprint again. The stairwell's end was marked by that bell. Beyond it, nothing drawn, only the penciled X. She reached up before her hand touched the bell. A sound behind her whispered into the stillness, not voice, not movement, dragging dot-like skin across carpet. She turned, empty hallway, but the shoe beneath her coat still, left-footed, was now facing the other direction. The mirror at the top of the stairs had shifted. She could feel it. She rang the bell. It didn't chime. It inhaled. The wall beside her pulsed once and then clicked open, not like a door, but like a muscle unclenching, a narrow space. No wider than a coffin. Inside, shelves lined with copies of the same photograph, the same children, the same burnt edge, each labeled in red wax. Do not catalogue. Each child's name redacted, save one. L.J. Elise stepped deeper. Her breath shortened, not from fear, but from recognition. The room didn't end. It shifted. It grew, with her thoughts. With memory. Every step revealed more. A pew, broken in 2. A torn hymnal, with no title-only initials in the margins. ESA, mirror, cracked through its center, reflecting not the room, but the one drawn behind the walls. She looked into it, saw herself, but not now, then 12, holding a candle, face blank. Behind her, a girl with sewn lips and empty hands. Elise whispered, "I didn't leave you." The girl didn't nod, didn't blink, just pressed a hand against the inside of the mirror. A handprint bloomed on Elise's side, wet tiled, dash-sized. She stepped back. Her shoe caught something hard, a key, frozen cold, painful to touch. A tag hung from it in the same red wax that had marked the photos. Lower oratory, minus third bell. Elise stared at it for a long time. She hadn't heard a second or first bell. Only the third, only the breath above her. The mirror flickered again. This time, no children, just rows of beds, empty, and one shoe, left dash-footed, facing her, beside it. A blueprint burned itself into the wall. The X was moving, widening. The wall whispered, "The room was always wider than they told you." She held the key. Its cold bit deeper into her palm. The house didn't move, she whispered, just the story around it. Behind her, the corridor closed itself shut, and somewhere, under the blueprint, under the archive, under the hymn, a door unlocked, as if something had been waiting for her to remember it was real, found a key. Too cold to touch, tagged lower oratory, third bell. Some names disappear, but their shadows remember. Her name wasn't on any. Official roster, no staff lists, no archived letters, no payroll entries. The role of night drill supervisor didn't exist, officially, and hadn't, even back then, and yet Elise had tracked her, not from a file, but from a hymn her theorist in a redacted prayer book. The same phrase repeated on every third page. Deliver them by name. Next to it, a penciled initial. Mr. Marion Reeves opened the door slowly, as though something waited behind Elise rather than before her. Her house smelled of bleach and lilac, the kind of clean that tried too hard, as if trying to undo something. A crack ran across the ceiling like a healed fracture that had reopened. "I never taught," Marion said, without being asked. "I was never on faculty." Her voice sounded borrowed, too measured, as if repeating a line rehearsed in front of mirrors that no longer reflected her properly. Elise didn't argue. She only opened the folder. Inside, a photograph, partly burnt. Children. In a line, hand in hand, descending narrow steps, robes, shoes removed. Their shadows didn't match their posture. Marion glanced once and looked away. Her fingers twitched, tugging at the edge of her sleeve like a nervous habit. "I don't recognize them," she said. The photograph was dated May 1976. The back, labeled Lower Oratory, Drill 12. There was no lower oratory on any known map. Who led the drills? Elise asked. Marion blinked. Her mouth opened, then closed. The skin beneath her eyes shimmered slightly, as if damp from the inside out. "There weren't drills," she said. "That's not no." Elise removed the journal, next weathered, found in a sealed evidence box during a basement purge too. Years ago, the front cover was blank, but inside, the entries began with lists. April 17th, 12 present. 1 resistant. Remind them, the light only returns for the obedient. Name, L. Jameson, crossed out. May 4th, drill began late. No music this time. Name, D. Alvarez, crossed out. Every entry ended the same. 1 name, 1 cross out. By July, the names stopped. Just numbers, then blanks. Marion stared at the pages, unmoving, then whispered, "I never saw that before." But her eyes traced the handwriting like they remembered it too well. The silence thickened. Elise's breath made a small fog on the glass of a nearby cabinet door, but Marion hadn't exhaled. Across the room, the bathroom door creaked open slightly. Light spilled through a cracked pane near the floor, an unnatural hue, too warm, like candlelight through wet gauze. Gaze flicked to the hallway. There was no lower level, she repeated, though more softly now. No bells, no oratory. I never mentioned bells, Elise said. The hairline crack in the ceiling twitched. Marion closed her eyes. You'll never find it, she said, because it's not where it was. It's where they were made to go. She reached suddenly for the journal, held it like a prayer book. I wrote things I was told to forget. We all did. They said if we crossed out the names, the silence would hold. And did it? No, she whispered. It moved. From behind the mirror above the mantel, a faint sound rose, muffled, scratching, like something remembering how to crawl. Marion stood. There's nothing more I can say. You shouldn't have come. I can help, Elise said. Marion turned. Her eyes were wet, but not from grief, from clarity. No, she said. You'll continue. She closed the journal and handed it back like it burned. I never taught, she said again, then retreated down the hall. The door shut behind her with no lock. But finality. Elise sat alone for several minutes. The lights hummed softly. A drawer beside her opened on its own, slowly. It hadn't been there before. Inside, a mirror the size of a hand, cracked in a spider line. The year inscribed on the back was 1983, 7 years after the institute had closed. She checked the reflection. Behind her, just past the couch, stood the outline of a girl. Barefoot. Elise turned. Nothing but a faint handprint glistened on the fabric of the cushion. Wet child, dash-sized. She left. The interview file was sealed by dusk. Annotated. Labeled Marion Reeves, unverified staff. See entry 48. By nightfall, the call came in. The officer's voice was tight, distant. We found her. Apartment bath. No signs of forced entry. Drowned, Elise asked. Yes, but the voice hesitated. It's not possible. The water was ... cold, like hours old. But her skin was still ... fresh. They sent photos. One showed the mirror above the tub, fogged from breath. Etched into it, 48-1 equals 47. The number hung there like an equation meant to be solved with memory, not math. Below it, drawn in condensation, a single shoe, left-footed, facing backward. Elise looked at the journal again. The final entry, one she hadn't seen before, was dated today. The ink was fresh. I tried to forget, but the rooms remember. They always do. And beneath it, Marion Reeves crossed out. Elise turned the mirror in her hand. In its cracked surface, the room behind her no longer matched the one she sat in. The lights flickered, the ceilings fracture, pulsed, and somewhere inside the glass, a faint whisper repeated in reverse. Deliver them by name. Etched into the mirror, 48-1 equals 47. Some maps are drawn from memory, others on skin. The girl called herself Mara, though the paperwork insisted otherwise. She sat in the intake chair, hands folded over sleeves that didn't quite hide her forearms. The light above her flickered in rhythmic pulses, not electrical, but like breath trying to decide whether to stay. Every few seconds, the shadows in the corners leaned forward, as if listening. Elise placed the folder down, unsealed. The pages inside weren't official photocopies, hand-scribbled notes, a hymn fragment, in Latin with only the middle verse intact. Et nomen tum abiscondo in ossibus, and thy name I shall hide in the bones. Mara glanced at the paper, didn't blink. I don't read Latin, she said, voice flat. You do, Elise answered. Gently. Silence, pressed like water around a sealed box. The girl's arms bore the story before her lips ever moved. Elise had noticed them first rows of tiny perfect circles, pale as healed cigarette burns, climbing up from her wrists to her biceps in grids of 12. 4 rows. 40-8, double quotes. They said you were only there 3 months, Elise said, more to the paper than the girl. Mara nodded. 3 months, and the marks. They started after the second dream. A faint breath fogged the one-way mirror behind Mara. She didn't react. Elise did. No one stood behind the glass. She leaned forward. What did you dream? Mara stared ahead. The tip of her shoe scratched the floor in slow, deliberate lines. The staircase first, she said. Black, slippery, too narrow to stand in, but wide enough to fall. And then the dorm hallway, longer every time. Beds with no frames, sheets tied in knots. I never saw the door, just the noise. From it, what noise? Mara's mouth twitched, breathing under the floor. Elise paused. She opened a second file, pulled out a drawing charcoal on old ledger paper. A hole in the ground, surrounded by the outline of hands, small, uneven, 48 of them. You drew this in your second interview. I don't remember doing it, but you signed it. Mara's signature sat neatly in the lower corner. It wasn't written in ink. It had been pressed, as if scratched with something not quite sharp. Behind her, the drawer in the cabinet opened. Slowly, it hadn't been there before. Elise rose. Inside, a burnt photo, 6 girls, all facing the same direction. But their shadows faced opposite. Elise flipped it. On the back, Dorm C, Drill 9 and name was faintly visible in pencil. Rubbed half away, Mara Jaishi set it on the table. Mara didn't flinch, just said, That's not me, but you know her. I remember the shadow. A chill traced Elise's spine. You mean her shape? No, her shadow. It was the only one that matched the sound from the floor. Mara nodded. Behind her, a light through the cracked door blinked twice, then stayed. You drew more than that, Elise said, voice low. Do you want to see? Mara didn't respond. Elise opened the final folder. Dozens of pages, sketched in faint charcoal, all unprompted. Maps, none of them matched official blueprints. Every one of them different, but threaded by one identical element. A room marked with a circle, never square, always slightly too wide. The position of the room changed, but the feeling did not. There was no lower oratory on record, Elise whispered, but every survivor draws this room. It wasn't a room, Mara murmured. Elise leaned in. It wasn't a room. It was the underneath of remembering. That's where they went. Mara looked at her finally. Her eyes did not reflect the room properly. 48, she lifted her sleeves fully. The marks caught the light, and then she reached for the charcoal Elise had left on the table. On her right thigh, just above the knee, she rolled her pants to reveal blank skin, until she drew circle 49. Why? Mara didn't speak, just stared at it like it had always been there. Elise reached for the recording equipment, pressed play on the interview mic. The tape rolled, whisper static, then 45, 46. Mara stiffened. 47. 48. Her eyes went wide. Her lips trembled. 99. She began to hum low and fractured. A melody Elise recognized immediately from the hymn, the one found torn in the ledger's Et Nomen tomb. Elise reached for the volume, increased it slightly. The tape glitched. A reverse tone echoed through the speaker. Then breath. Then silence. Then the voice again. 47, 48. Then slower. 49. And then 49, 49.
89.
The light in the ceiling pulsed. Behind Mara, the breath fogged the mirror again. This time it did not fade. A handprint bloomed in the center. Elise ran. She opened the security door, crossed to the observation room. The backside of the one-way mirror was entirely clear, but the room was empty. No Mara, no chair, no file, only the drawing on the wall, charcoal on painted plaster. The circle room, 40-9, and beneath it, her own name, E. Lane, scratched in, not written. The breath fogged the glass beside her. A drawer opened in the hallway. A hymn page drifted out, torn from the middle. And thy silence shall be a prayer. On the security tape from the previous hour, the audio glitched again. Then the counting resumed. 47, 48, 49. She played it back. Then again, each time it started lower. 46, 47, until finally, as she stood shaking in the observation room, the final line repeated one more time. Fainter, older, wrong, 50. And in her arm, beneath her coat, she felt it suddenly. A new circle, raised pink, still forming, final tape, transcript. 47, 48, 49. They built the rooms underground so no one would hear the dreams. The lowest passage was marked only on the first blueprint, ink-smudged stairwell sketched into the margin. No floor number, no door label. When the scan was enhanced, the corridor didn't just descend, it widened. Breath by breath, stone by stone, it listened. Elise stepped into it alone. The others had said they'd wait upstairs, said it was too late in the night, the battery low on the camera. But she knew the lie was kinder than the silence that followed. It cheaped us the rusted bell hook at the threshold. Lower oratory, third bell. The key had fit too icily. The lock had turned without protest, as if it remembered her. The flashlight's beam cut down into the carved rock. Cold wept from the walls, and then the smell, like old paper and burnt milk, like time collapsing in a room no longer needed. At the foot of the stairs, dormitories, built directly into stone, narrow, perfect rectangles, each with a wooden bed frame, every mattress rotted but neatly made, iron bed tags marked by childlike initials CFLJ, SB, some crossed out in chalk, others scrubbed clean, and at the center of each room, beneath the mildew and splinters, arranged in ritual circles, some plastic, some porcelain, some made of cloth too fine for children. Their glass eyes were fogged. She raised her camera, recorded the layout. Each time she panned across a room, a static click echoed faintly behind the wall, as if something were mimicking the shutter in the fourth room. She found it, a child's shoe, white, preserved under a layer of wax paper brittle with age, the laces still tied. She remembered the photo now. One of the redacted case files had a girl with one shoe missing, cropped just above the ankle. The time stamp had been scratched out. Behind her, the air shifted. She turned nothing but the cameras. LED blinked, indicating a frame skipped. She rewound. On playback, a mirror flashed in the background, but there had been no mirror. She retraced her steps. backtracked to the third dorm, and there it was hung between two wall beams, behind a veil of mold, a tall, thin mirror, not dusty, not broken, just wrong. It reflected the room, but backward, beds she hadn't seen. A version of the corridor that branched left instead of right. The reflection included a door behind her shoulder. She turned, no door, but the mirror showed it. Still closed, and someone standing in front of it, too close behind her. She spun nothing, the mirror rippled. Hairline cracks raced across its surface in slow, delicate veins, one by one until the glass shivered. She hadn't touched it. The crack stopped at her face. She stepped back. It held her image still, but her eyes were open wider in the reflection. Her mouth moved soundlessly. She fled to the next room. There, on the walls, scratches, deep, uneven tally marks, grouped in sevens, some full, some ending mid-count, .40-9 in one. 7 sets. Then a gap, then for more. She counted again. The chalk lines did not match. Some rooms had more marks than there were beds. One had a bed nailed shut. Inside, nothing, no mattress. No frame, only a drawer built into the wall. She hadn't seen drawers in any other room. It didn't open icily when it did. It exhaled dust like a sigh inside, a hymn torn from a book. Only the first line remained. Et omnis fenestra spectat interius. All windows face inward, taped to the page-burnt photo edges. The top half of a face cut clean across the eyes. The lower half was Elise's. She dropped it. The paper stuck to her palm too warm. Behind her, a door clicked open, but no door had. Been there. She followed the noise to the wall where the mirror had cracked. A new passage. Slightly ajar. Light through the cracked door flickered once. Inside, a mirrored dormitory, but inverted. The beds now faced the wall. The dolls lay with their backs arched toward the ceiling, necks twisted, and in this room a name scratched into the bed frame. Not a child's initials. E. Lane. Her name. She backed out. Slowly, breath, loud. The camera trembled. The hallway flickered again. The mirrors now stood in every doorframe, facing inward. No exit visible, the camera's feed looped. Each time she moved forward, the footage recorded her in reverse. A breath fogged her lens. She wiped it. Another breath this time, inside the lens. From behind it, she heard the click again. Not a switch. A tongue clicking, mimicking. She turned the corner. A wall she hadn't passed. Fresh chalk tally marks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then beneath it, Mara. Then beneath that, Elise, behind. Her glass, cracking, the mirror from before. Now, fully splintered, she dared to look. Her reflection smiled, and a handprint bloomed on the inside of the lens. The camera turned itself. Off. No one touched it. Final still, mirror cracked, reflection intact. Tag burned into the bed frame. All windows face inward. A mouth doesn't need to open to leave a sound behind. The reel had no label. Just a pencil scrawled 75A on brittle tape. Elise found it wedged between two broken hymnals in the schools. Disused chapel filing room, a place that smelled like sour paper and had no working lights. She took the tape because it hummed. Not audibly, but beneath her skin. A pressure in the bone. Back in the archive office, she slid the reel into the playback unit. It caught with a stutter, then spun. The static came first, then a room tone so Quiet, it felt remembered more than recorded. And then the singing girls' voices, layered in pale, perfect unison, not warm, not joyous, just precise, mechanical in its harmony, like lungs trained to breathe on command. The hymn was familiar, one she'd seen torn in half, stuffed in a drawer behind old ledgers. Domini, Adi Vosamim. Lord, hear my voice. She listened 3 times before she heard the mistake. Not in pitch, not in phrasing, in number. There were too many voices. The choir, according to school records, had 48 girls. Always 48. Rostered, checked, counted. But at the edge of the melody half, a tone below. Beneath a Latin another voice. Breathy, not singing, whispering. She isolated the track, slowed the audio. The melody blurred, became molasses slow notes, melting together like faces in a burnt photograph, and the voice emerged. A girl, just beneath hearing, non sepelte, mutuator. They are not buried, they are borrowed. The breath in Elise's throat locked. She paused the track. Silence, then a soft click from behind the office wall. She turned. The plaster was cracked. Just at shoulder height, narrow hairline, fresh and moving. It curled upward like something was drawing it from the inside. She pressed her hand against it. The wall was warm. She returned to the desk, rewound the reel, fast-forwarded to the end. The girl's final chord rang out, then decayed until only room noise remained. Then double quotes, 40-1, double quotes, pause, 42. Longer pause, 43. Elise's fingers hovered above the stop button, 44, 40. The voice was counting too slowly for rehearsal, too soft for performance. A girl's voice, uninflected, tired, 46. Elise leaned closer. Her ear nearly touched the speaker. 48, then 49. The breath on the last number sounded wet. She yanked the tape out. It hissed, then stopped moving. She opened the drawer beneath the reel player. It wasn't supposed to be deep. She'd measured it once 4 inches, but now it pulled for 12. Inside. A burnt corner of a photograph. One half of a choir. She recognized the staging. Back row risers, velvet curtain. The tape sim had been titled Winter Benediction. She'd seen this image before on the school's anniversary pamphlet, but this version was longer, wider. A figure stood behind the back row, blurry, taller than the girls, or crouched, unclear but present. The ink on the edge of the photo had melted, dripped like tears into the paper. One of the droplets ended at the foot of the tallest girl in front. Her name tag, if it had been there, was blacked out. The chapel lights above the photo shone perfectly in the picture, but no such lights had existed in that room. For decades, Elise checked the calendar. The concert had been held on January 17th, 1975. But in the school journal, handwritten and stamped, the entry for that day was blank. Every page before it was filled. Daily routines, meal logs, temperature, January 17th. Nothing. The next day resumed as if uninterrupted, but the headmistress's name had been removed from all subsequent pages, not crossed out, not erased, torn, just like the hymn page. She lifted the photo again. Its surface had warped. Her own reflection blinked on it briefly, and behind her shoulder, in the glass another head, Elise turned. The mirror above. The fireplace had fogged, but the room was cold. No heat, no breath. She moved toward it. On the fog, a handprint. Pressed outward, She hadn't touched the glass. No, one had. But the palm was small, child-sized and wet. The handprint dripped once. She backed away. The audio tape on the desk rewound itself. She hadn't touched it. Then it played. No melody this time. Just the whisper. They are not buried. They are borrowed. 3 times, each slower than the last. Behind the wall, a faint knock. 7 times. Pause. Then again, Elise moved to the filing cabinet. One she had not opened in years. It groaned when it slid open like a throat trying to speak. Inside, redacted. Choir rosters. Only first names. No surnames. But at the bottom of the 1975 list, someone had penciled in. Back row blurred. She checked a drawer again at the back. A folder that shouldn't have fit. Inside, one more photo, the choir, arranged again. This time, the girls stood facing the wall. All 48, hair braided, arms behind their backs. A mirror at the center. Of the composition, in its reflection, none of their faces. Only the figure behind them, sharp, now eyes, closed, mouth stitched shut. But beneath the glass, at the corner of the photo, was one final line. E.T. illi cantant, sed or aliena. And they sing, but not with their own mouths. The photograph fell from Elise's hand, and behind her, the reel played its final whisper, 49. She turned to the wall. The crack had stopped moving, and inside the fogged mirror, a new face watched her, mouth closed, but humming. It wasn't built bigger. It just remembered how wide it was when the doors were still locked. The steps curved downward for too long. Elise counted them, Matt first out of habit, then desperation. 92, 93, 94. Then she lost count. Not because she stopped, but because the last 20 had no visible edges. Just darkness worn smooth by something too careful. To leave tracks, she reached the bottom not by arrival, but by pressure. The air changed thicker, warm like breath in a sealed envelope. She knew this was the original chamber, not from memory, but from the sound. A faint droning, barely perceptible, not humming, not mechanical. A room remembering itself. Her flashlight flickered once, then steadied. The beam moved slow across the stone. The walls were damp, pulsing faintly, as if the chamber exhaled when she moved too fast. It was wider than the blueprints. Too wide, she panned the light overhead and her stomach turned. Furniture clung to the ceiling, upside-down desks, bunk beds bolted by their frames, a bookshelf held shut with iron twine. A doll, cradled against the beams, blinked down at her. The floor beneath her was clean, wet but clean, like something had recently been wiped away. In the center of the room, a single paper rested. Children's drawing, crayon lines, red spiral. Stick figures holding hands around it. One by one, their faces were smudged out. Erased, not violently, but ritually, as if done by someone who believed they were making space. Only one figure remained. It stood in the spiral's center, no face. Just a mirror for a head. She turned the paper over. Nothing, but the back was warmer than the front dot. A throb came from the left wall. She moved toward it and stopped. A mirror, floor length, cracked at its edges, not mounted, embedded. Its surface was mottled like skin soaked in water too long. The reflection showed the room, but slightly wrong. In the image, the paper was missing. In its place, a burnt photo. She turned, looked at the floor, still the drawing. She looked again in the mirror. The photo remained. She leaned closer. It was her, a younger version, maybe 17 arms pinned behind her back by someone out of frame. Her mouth wide open in mid-breath, not scream. Behind her in the photo, the chamber. And writing on the ceiling, just above her head, she strained to read it in the reflection. Do not open unless they sing. She blinked. The writing wasn't in the real room. She checked again. Mirror. The words. Reality. Blank stone. Her camera beeped. The auto-record had kicked on. She hadn't touched it. A low click from behind her. She turned. A drawer sat open in the far wall. But no drawer had existed a moment ago. Inside, a torn hymn again. Different this time. Same title, Domini odi vos in meo. But the lyrics had been replaced, scratched over in pencil. Only the 48th can close it. The others must remain beneath. Beside the hymn, a child's shoe. The left foot, same as the one preserved upstairs, but older, dirtier. Its sole bore a name etched, faintly in white thread. MC, she'd seen it in the redacted files. Marla, C, vanished during the 75 evacuation. Last seen by the south corridor, holding the rope for fire exit 3. The rope was later found coiled neatly inside the bell tower. The exit door was still locked from the outside. Her breath caught. She heard it fog the camera lens, but when she wiped it, the breath came again. From behind the glass, the mirror on the wall pulsed. Once not cracked. Breathing, she stepped back. The ceiling furniture groaned. Not all at once, sequentially a bed. A chair, the doll dot each shifted as if a step passed along them. And beneath her feet, the floor warmed. A sound emerged. Recorded, not ambient dot from her bag. She hadn't brought a recorder, but one played anyway. Tape, faint warble, a label smudged. On its casing, oratory evacuation, the 3rd of November, 75. She held it. Her hands shook. The voices were chaotic metal clatter, rushed breath, screams. Someone yelling for a roll call. The word, 48, repeated. Again, again, until the voice fractured into sobs. Then, we have 48. That's all. We need another voice, calm, male, seal it. Then a girl's scream. Cut off mid-breath. The tape continued, then silence, and then ah. Sound like skin peeling from wet stone. She froze, the mirror fogged. Again no breath near it, just a single hinge hand. Pride, upside, dash down. On the inside, it slid slowly down the glass. She backed, toward the stair, but the chamber didn't let her go. The walls shifted minutely, the exit re-angled, just barely, like the hallway was relearning its shape. The child's drawing on the floor had changed. The spiral was wider now, more figures erased, and the one remaining no longer in the center. It now stood beside the spiral's edge, looking in, holding a recorder, no face, just the mirror. She dropped the tape. It continued to play. Not a scream this time, a whisper. The room remembers who made it grow. Then again, slower, the room remembers you. Her camera recorded until the lens fogged entirely in the final frame. The child's drawing curls at the corner. A new figure enters the spiral, unlabeled, unsmudged, but holding a face that looks almost hers. The wall didn't breathe until I forgot who was on the other side. The scanner pulsed once blue, then red, and stayed red. Kara hadn't blinked in 47 seconds. She knew because she'd been counting. Numbers steadied. Her, even when nothing else did. 48 forms inside the wall. The forensic team whispered, thinking she couldn't hear. Children, one had said. No, shapes, the other corrected. No IDs, no remains, just density. Cold density. She kept her eyes on the display. The outlines were crude body. Approximations stitched in thermal white, curled like they'd been folded to fit. The walls of the southern dormitory weren't thick enough to hold anything. And yet they did. 40-8. Then a flicker, .40-9. One of them shifted. Kara stepped backward without sound. The scanner trembled again and refreshed now. Only ambient data. No figures, just the wall. Clean, but it wasn't. She placed her hand against it. Cold, dry, no bulge, no warp. But something listened. The voice began in her own mouth before she knew it was hers. I was 49, but I came back wrong. She didn't remember saying it. Only the echo, stale against the corner tiles, looping back like it was waiting. For the line, her knees gave first. Then her throat. She slumped by the corner where the air didn't move. The others left her. She didn't ask them to stay. The scan logs would later be redacted protocol, they'd say. One entry preserved, subject collapsed. Self-recognition disoriented. Whispered phrase. I was 49. She tried to hold breath steady, tried to remember the moment she came back. But memory wasn't a reel. It was a seam pulled apart, and someone else was stitching it. The drawer hadn't been there the day before, but it was now a medical drawer embedded in the southern wall, sealed with rusted steel, the kind used for storing scalpels. It had no key, and still it slid open with a sigh. Inside, a burnt photo, already curling. Kara didn't want to look. She had 2 children in uniform, all smiling, except the girl's second from the end, her face half turned, like she heard something behind the lens. The corner of the image caught her breath. A date. March 11th, 1976. But the school had closed in 75. The photo showed a window that no longer existed. One of the children wore her pin. Kara recognized it. A small copper cross with a fractured base, issued only 2 dormitory captains. She had one too, but her memory ended at 3 months. Just orientation, no uniform. No authority that the pin lay in her left palm. She didn't remember finding it. The wall behind the beds bore no seams, but the mirror that reflected them, lines like veins, shifting gently when unobserved. She brought the scanner close again. One figure, moving, not pacing, not breathing, just shifting, slowly, like it was adjusting to a shape. The display glitched, a sound cut through cracked, static, then a hymn, distorted, slurred, not sung, inhaled. The mirror fogged slightly. She stepped away, but her reflection, DIDN single quotes to the room in the mirror behind her, was wrong. No beds, just lined stone, and 48 marks along the wall. Not scratches, not nails, bites, small. Uniform, patterned in a circle. In the center of the mirrored floor, a hymn page, folded, like a mouth. Its words inverted. She looked down, no page, but the air smelled like burnt linen. She stepped back from the mirror, and something stayed. Its handprint lingered, blurred by condensation that hadn't come from her. The lights flickered, not failure. Sequence left to right. Paused, then back again. She turned off her own lamp. Sat in silence. The wall ticked. From inside, a heartbeat, not fast, not loud, but deliberate, like the sound of someone counting to not forget. Themselves a drawer, opened again. Different wall. This one shouldn't exist. Inside, a child's shoe, left. Foot, It matched the one she'd found last week. The one tagged Marla C. This shoe bore no tag, only ink. Scrawled inside the sole, her name, Kara, but not in her handwriting. She dropped it. Her mouth formed the whisper again. I was 49. But I came back wrong. The scanner refreshed. The wall lit up. 48 still. Except the shape nearest her wasn't curled anymore. It faced forward, directly behind where she knelt. She turned. The wall was solid. No opening but the crack. In the mirror moved, a single line inching down the glass, like something heavy leaned behind it and breathed. She crawled backward, then stood and heard the whisper. This time, not hers. Behind the wall, Kara. A child's voice. Then two voices. Same name, Kara, Kara. Then in chorus, as if remembering how to speak, she pressed her hands to her ears. Didn't help. The sound was inside. Her skull, Kara. She fled the dormitory hall. Barefoot, the shoe still clutched. She didn't remember picking it back up. Down, past the infirmary, past the filing room with the erased ledgers. She followed the pulse in her ears. It wasn't hers. She stopped at the western corridor. Dead end, except it wasn't the flashlight. Flickered once, and there it was. A door. Stone framed, steel plated and locked. No hinges on this side. No handle, no listing on any blueprint. But the wood bore marks. Small scratches. 7. Then another row, then another. Exactly 48. Tallies then, space for one more, and above them, etched deeply. KRA. She turned to run. The door exhaled and whispered her name. Again, not as a warning, but as recognition. She pressed her back to the opposite wall. The hallway was silent again, except the scanner on her hip lit up. Refresh. 40-8. Refresh. 40-9. Refresh. 49. Refresh. 40-9. She didn't move, because one figure just behind the western door was now tapping. Tap, 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 tap. Then silence, then a mouth, breathing through the wall, and saying her name, exactly how she used to say it, before she forgot which version of her had walked out. The scanner failed. The final line in its memory buffer simply read, subject aligned with room, trace memory conflict initiated, awaiting version lock. And, in the dark, the door waited, tally mark 40-9. Still uncarved. The door opened with the sound of breath catching in a throat that no longer knew air. Not a creak, not a groan, just a shiver. Kara stepped through. The room was colder than it had a right to be. Stone surrounded her smooth, wet in places, ancient in a way that made time feel like something that could rot. But it was the mirrors that drew her eye, floor to ceiling, lining every wall, cornerless, seamless. And none of them showed her. Not this her. Each pane held a version of the room frozen in the year 1975. She didn't need to guess, it bled from the footage like a time stomp that refused to fade. Girls stood in each reflection, unmoving but not, still, reaching, silent, their hands pressed against the inner surface of the glass. Their dresses were the same fabric she remembered scraping her knees in. Their eye-stitched, closed, tidy, like someone didn't want to see them again, or didn't want them to see us. One of the mirrors flickered. The girl inside moved a fraction too fast to be film. The stitching was wet, fresh. Her mouth opened not in scream, not even in breath, but in knowing Kara. She mouthed there was no sound. But Kara flinched behind her. The door closed with no touch. She moved toward the mirror on instinct. Her boots scuffed something small, plastic, half melted. She knelt and picked it up, a doll's arm. The plastic was chewed, the joint scorched. The name Miri was etched in marker across the shoulder in a child's hand. Miri, the girl who had shared her cot for a week, who knew 7 hymns backward and 2 secrets forward, the one who said, if they take your eyes, sing through your teeth. Kara turned the arm over. A drop of warm water fell onto her hand. Not from above. From the mirror it leaked. A single crack had split the glass near the bottom, a thin hairline that bent unnaturally, like it was trying to crawl. From it, water trickled out thick, warm, slightly red. She backed away. Breath caught mid-chest. A drawer opened behind her. She didn't turn, not yet. A hum began to thrum through the Aaron institutional tone, mechanical but uneven, like an intercom remembering how to lie. The hymn it played was one she hadn't sung in decades. Come quiet, the watcher waits. Only this version looped, only 3 lines, and the 3rd line changed every time. And if they ask, you dreamed it. And if they scream, forget it. And if they wake, reseal it. A voice beneath the hymn whispered her name in a slow loop, just below hearing. Not a call, a reminder. Kara turned to the drawer. It had not been in the wall before. That wall had been seamless. But the drawer was there now, open 2 inches. She reached in, a hymn page, torn at the centerfold, stiff with age, burned at the edges. Its ink smeared with something that had congealed long ago. A line was underlined in red. They'll ask you to return what never left. Inside the drawer, a photograph, warped from heat, 10 girls, cuffed uniforms, eyeless. Each girl's name scratched into the photo. 9 names she did not recognize. One she did. Kara L., no older than 10. Her image was blurred not by age, but movement. She wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking to the side, mouth open, as if caught mid-sentence. Behind her, a door not visible in any blueprint. It bled black around the hinges. She traced the image with her thumb. She remembered that moment. They told her it was staged. A school play, a punishment lesson, a dream. But her scars had time stamps, one behind her left ear, one beneath her rib, one perfect circle at the base of her spine. They were still there. The mirror in front of her, flickered now, it did show her, but she was 10.shoeless, in a cotton shift, face pale and filmed like glass. That version of her leaned forward and pressed, a hand against the other side of the mirror. The breath fogged this side. Where Kara stood, there was no breath in her throat. Still, her body responded. A ripple of air escaped her lips and returned to her skin. She moved closer, trembling. The younger Kara opened her mouth, but sound didn't come. Instead, her lips moved in a whisper. Don't let them take me again. Kara reached for the mirror. Her fingers trembled. The reflection stayed. She mouthed it again. Slower. Don't let them take me. Again, behind the reflection, the room distorted. Time inside, it moved backward. The mirrors reversed. The stitched girls blinked. Their threads vanished. The water ran clear. Kara dropped the photo. A scream began from behind the mirror. Not her, the other girls. All of them unified. One long exhale. Turned, shriek, and then crack. The mirror split, precisely between their faces. Blood not water ran in threads from the break. The girl's image blinked once, then turned away. The drawer slammed shut. The door behind her reopened, and a final mirror to her right lit up inside. A room that didn't exist. A room that didn't exist. A circle of girls seated in silence. Each one held a hymn book. Each one held a hymn book. Each hymn book was open to a different song. But each girl sang the same line. I remember being buried. I remember being buried. I remember being buried. The echo wrapped itself around Kara's spine, not just fear. Recognition. She had said it once in sleep, in fever, in quiet, and now it echoed not just in the room, but in her mouth. The final mirror turned black, her reflection gone, and behind her, the photo she had dropped now lay flipped. Its back bore one thing, a single sentence, carved, not printed, return what never left. A final breath fogged the mirror closest to her. No one stood there, but her name began. Again, quiet, looped. Don, told let them take me again. The tunnel was breathing. Air moved against Kara's face in pulses. Warm, then cold, like the throat of something sleeping. Behind her, the collapse sealed shut with the sound of a throat swallowing. Stones falling where a door used to be. The last light was gone, eaten by mud and memory. Ahead, only blackness, dot and bells. They told faintly, too faint for distance, too loud for memory. The oratory's bell tower had crumbled 47 years ago, yet the chimes rang in a cadence no storm could fake. 4 beats, then 3, then silence, then again, then again. She blinked into the dark, but it blinked back. Behind her, Julian's breath trembled against her shoulder. He hadn't spoken since they found the 49th shape on the scan. The scan that pulsed once, refreshed and showed something moving. They hadn't meant to go this deep. No one had. The maps thinned out below the storage level, then vanished. Archives redacted by hand, not ink. Kara had seen the scraped marks paper cut through with razors, not pens. Whole rooms erased by pressure, now here, mud up to their ankles, water seeping from the ceiling like sweat. She reached forward. Her hand disappeared into the dark before her arm did. Like the black was thicker than the air. She paused, then Dash's small fingers touched hers. She didn't scream. Not this time. Another hand found Julian's. Then another. The dark was full of children, but none made a sound. Not yet. They walked forward, led by invisible palms. Kara felt the weight of shoes scuffing mud, but when she glanced down, no footprints. Followed, the air thickened, and with it came a tune, soft, circular, sung by many mouths. It was a lullaby, but it was wrong. Each verse started mid-sentence. Each line trailed off into a hum, like the singer forgot or forgave the words. For voices. Then a 40-9th. This one didn't sing, it whispered, you shouldn't have come back. Kara froze, the child holding her hand, DIDN single quote. Its grip pulled her forward, gentle but firm. Julian stumbled behind her, ahead. Something glowed. A light through a cracked door. It was an office, but reversed. The desk was nailed to the ceiling, covered in mold. Filing cabinets hung sideways like broken teeth. A drawer that shouldn't exist was open mid-air, paper floating around it like kelp. Redacted files. Photos with faces scratched out. One photo fluttered to Kara's chest. It was of her, again. Only this time, she wasn't 10. She was now standing in this same hallway, holding a child's hand, but the walls behind her in the photo were moving, breathing, and the photo was damp, still bleeding at the corners. The drawer slammed shut. Julian stepped beside her, trembling. "This isn't," she nodded, not letting him finish. A breath fogged the cracked glass of the office window. But they were the only two alive. "I think," Kara whispered, "we're inside a room that remembers us." The hallway opened wider. Mud receded. Stone gave way to polished floor. A chapel, stone pews, ruined hymn books, candles that dripped upward. Each wall bore a mirror. In each mirror, a child stared out. Some wept, some smiled. None blinked at the front. An altar of stone, and on it, a single shoe. Child's sighs, scorched, burnt clean through the soul. Julian moved to touch it. Kara stopped him. "Don't." He hesitated, because it looked like his sister's. She had told him the dream once, before they took her in. "There's a place the floor remembers," she had whispered in sleep. "If you walk too loud, it swallows you." He'd dismissed it until her bed was empty, until the institution said she was never enrolled, until they found the camera, half-dash, buried, still, recording. That had been a month ago now. Kara reached for the altar, touched the stone. It was warm from below, and then the bells rang again, louder now, inside the walls, and the mirrors cracked, one by one, but never shattered from each, a handprint. From the inside, the children were. Pushing, the lullaby resumed, but now it was slower. Deliberate, it knew she was listening. We sleep where the books forget. We sing where the bells regret. We wait where the maps forget. And we count. Each line fell like ash. Then 46, 47, a pause, a breath, 48. Another voice, softer, male, 49. Julian backed away, but the floor cracked beneath him. A hairline fissure split the stone. It crawled forward, toward the altar, toward the shoe. Kara turned. A mirror behind her was glowing, not reflecting, recording. It showed them from above, like footage. From a bird's eye dot, Julian standing near the altar, Kara kneeling beside the shoe, and in the corner just visible, child's face, watching, grinning. Kara touched the mirror, and the face moved, not in the mirror. In the room, somewhere, behind them. They turned nothing. The mirrors darkened, except one. It showed the camera. In the dirt, still running, recording them now. A low hum started from the walls. Like metal under pressure, the children let go. The air changed, and the tunnel behind them groaned. Stones began to fall. Julian grabbed Kara's wrist. "Run." They didn't. The ceiling collapsed behind them in slow, excruciating thunder. Dust filled the chamber like breath finally exhaled, and the bells stopped. The shoe fell from the altar, landed at Kara's feet. It was new now. No burns. Still warm. She didn't pick it up. The mirrors went black, except one that showed her, just her, alone. The camera inside the image zoomed slowly, until the only thing visible was her eyes, and in them reflected the same chapel, but empty dot except for the child. Face close to lens, smiling, mouthing something over and over. "You shouldn't have come back." Then the feed cut to black, but the camera outside the mirror, in the real dirt, kept recording. The last frame, a child's, hand brushing mud from the lens. Then Dash smiled dot wide, unblinking, recognizing.